Who will solve this? Perseus asked. A smile appeared on Chelsea's cold face. Lord Perseus, with your abilities, eliminating these unruly elves shouldn't be too difficult, right? Yes, they're openly defying his majesty. Ethan exclaimed. They should be shown the might of our empire. The elves are extremely dispersed, with each settlement consisting of only a small population. The most powerful among them are no more than 2 like them, so you don't need to worry about encountering any strong resistance, Liner said. Perseus smiled slightly. What will you do after we kill them? We have nothing to do with them. You can do whatever you want. What I mean is, Perseus paused. You all seem to be enemies. If we just deal with them, wouldn't you become the only ones in power? I think it would be better to just end it all and take care of yourselves too. Chelsea and the other two's expressions changed slightly. What? Do you doubt that I can't do it? Perseus asked, puzzled. The 3 quickly shook their heads, forcing out awkward smiles. Please don't misunderstand, Lord Perseus. What we meant was, do you also want to go it alone, like the Wind Whisper adventurers? To pop you get in the ruins of the gods? Perseus asked. The 3 hesitated, as if they wanted to say something, but then stopped. They didn't want to work alone. They did want to pack their own stuff into their own bags. However, their intentions seemed to have been completely exposed in the eyes of this seemingly young and naive youth. You don't actually think that people who go in alive can come out alive, do you? Perseus smiled. The stench of blood instantly filled the entire office, even startling Robert. You are all citizens of the Empire, and you all have a responsibility to be loyal to His Majesty. That is why we have summoned you, Perseus said. Do not think of this as cooperation, nor as us begging you. This is actually an opportunity we are giving you to prove your loyalty to His Majesty. Loyalty is certainly desirable, but even a 3-year-old knows the consequences of disloyalty, right? In their soft whispers, the threat almost materialized, becoming a steel knife held to their necks. All 3 of them were very unhappy. They've risen to their positions through sheer force of will. Each of them has killed at least 80 or 100 people, and their daily lives are filled with the threat of death. Their strength is almost unmatched in Eagle Peak City, which is their greatest source of confidence. Even the city lord of Eagle Peak City, a powerful figure with connections to both the legitimate and criminal worlds, an astonishing background, and extraordinary abilities, wouldn't dare to threaten them so openly and directly. This kid has only been around for a few days. I want you to swear allegiance immediately and fight to the death against all who are disloyal. We'll discuss the rewards you will receive later, Perseus said, looking at each of the 3 men one by one. Who agrees? Who disagrees? After a long silence, Ethan spoke. A gigantic, man-eating flower suddenly fell from the ceiling, its gaping maw aimed at Ethan's head. Caught off guard, even when he noticed, he had no strength left to fight back and could only scream in despair. Yes, I want to say I'm willing. The carnivorous plant stopped abruptly. Mr. Ethan, your loyalty to the Empire is truly commendable. Perseus stood up, his eyes shining. Ethan was already shaken, and hearing what he said almost made him faint on the spot. Chelsea and Reiner were not confident that they could escape unscathed from that sudden attack, so they expressed their loyalty to the Emperor to Perseus, fearing that Perseus might go berserk on them again. Loyalty can sometimes be that simple. Perseus smiled at Robert. For the first time, Robert wore an unnatural smile. Chapter 169, The Price of Disloyalty. Robert was not surprised by the magic that Perseus possessed. He had learned about Perseus's various actions as an adventurer during this period through his own channels, and he understood that Perseus was a 6th order mage who knew more than one type of magic, and that each type of magic was of a high level. To his surprise, Perseus, who had always given him the impression of being polite, gentle, and a true gentleman, dared to suddenly kill a 6th-tier expert in public. The 2 teammates of this 6th-tier powerhouse were still on the side, and both of them were also 6th-tier powerhouses. Aren't you afraid of being attacked by so many of them? Or are you confident you can wipe out the entire enemy force in one fell swoop? Or perhaps they have no confidence at all and simply want to kill someone, even if they are killed in return? Robert instantly realized that beneath Perseus's gentlemanly exterior lay a chilling madness. Madmen are often the most terrifying. Reiner, Chelsea, and Ethan from the Deathwing Adventurers Guild shared the same feeling. Ethan, who had just escaped death, was terrified and broke out in a cold sweat. His pupils twitched as he looked at Perseus. He never expected the other party to dare to do this, and even attacked him without listening to what he was trying to say. He was absolutely certain that this man was insane and the insanest he had ever encountered in all his years of wandering. If it weren't for his battle-hardened instincts reminding him, he wouldn't even know how he died. Even if he had realized it, he wouldn't have had time to fight back and could only follow his biological instincts to survive, howling and begging for mercy. This humiliated him. If someone else launches a sneak attack, he'll definitely teach that guy a lesson. Breaking their limbs would be too lenient. If no one's around to intervene, he might even slit their throat. But when facing Perseus, he felt more fear than humiliation. The threat of death he had just faced kept replaying in his mind. It was really just a hair's breadth away. Mr. Ethan has already sworn allegiance. What about you two? Perseus turned to look at Reiner and Chelsea. Reiner and Chelsea exchanged a glance, and both noticed that the other's expression was not very good. Although they didn't directly face the impact, as seasoned adventurers, they would subconsciously assess how they would react if they were in that situation. The answer is, they couldn't react either. There was no time to draw the sword, nor time to chant the incantation. However, if the two sides were to face off head-on, they did not believe they would lose to the other. Submission by force is not their preferred method. However, the other party was not only a powerful mission, but also had an incredibly strong background. People like them, who have no background and are powerful, can only fight each other on a small or bully ordinary people with no background, no matter how strong they are. There are two types of people they absolutely dare not provoke. One group consisted of nobles, officials. Even if the other party has nothing but their status, it is precisely this status that makes them, no matter how unruly, have to bow and scrape. Behind them is grass. Behind these people is a mountain. No matter how lush the grass grows, a random stone rolling down from the mountain can flatten it. Therefore, even if they were unwilling, they had no choice but to bow their heads. I'm also willing to pledge allegiance, Reiner said. Me too, Chelsea said as well. Perseus nodded with pleasure, stood up, and walked toward them. The three men's expressions changed. They wanted to back away, but dared not, so they could only stand there awkwardly. The three of you are probably the most outstanding adventurers in Eagle Peak City, Perseus said with a smile as he stood in front of them. If possible, I would like you to serve as leaders and jointly manage the other adventurers under the Lord's command. If anyone dares to disobey, you know what to do. Other adventurers all have their own teams, and even if we are a little stronger than them, we can't control them, Reiner said with a forced smile. Now we can, Perseus said calmly. When those people sober up tomorrow, you should divide them into 3 groups and tell them that this is all for the Empire, and that the Empire and His Majesty will never forget what they have done. If there are any who are unwilling to submit, you should let them leave. If they are willing to stay, you should unite them and build good relations with them. But you need to make them understand that leaving means becoming an enemy of the Empire, His Majesty, and us, just like those 2 people just now. What do you intend to do with those 2, sir? Ethan asked, mustering his courage. If we don't make them immediately pay the price for being your enemy, the rest of you will definitely follow suit, and then we'll have very few people left to use. Perseus thought for a moment. You may wait here for a moment. All 3 of them were a little confused. Perseus ignored him, strode out of the office, and found Katie. Reiner and the others looked at Robert with extremely complicated expressions, unsure of what to say. Follow Lord Perseus's orders, Robert said. After a while, the 3 of them nodded one after another. Perseus knew the Wind Whisperer's hideout, so he led Katie in a clear direction. The Wind Whisperer adventure team consists of 4 people. Besides Sophia and Dylan from earlier, there are 2 others who happen to be a couple. None of the 4 were drunk. They huddled together, whispering to each other with serious expressions. Dylan seemed to have completely ignored what Perseus had just said and told his 2 teammates about the appearance of the god's ruins. Perseus and Katie appeared directly in front of them. This street is sparsely populated, so if we keep the noise down, we shouldn't disturb too many people. The 4 members of the Wind Whisper adventure team immediately became alert, but due to Perseus's identity, they did not immediately draw their weapons. Moreover, Perseus smiled calmly, and Katie simply stood silently beside him, showing no hostility. Lord Perseus, what do you mean by this? Sophia asked with a smile. Humans are really hospitable, Dylan sneered. They've already left, and they're still seeing us off this far. I just feel that if your Wind Whisper adventure group were willing to stay and serve the Empire, you could definitely play a crucial role for us. It would be such a pity if you just left like this. Perseus walked towards them step by step, a warm smile on his face. Why don't you reconsider? Sophia frowned. Don't even think about it. We can't possibly cooperate with you humans, Dylan said impatiently. Perseus nodded, his gaze sweeping over Dylan before turning to the other three. Where are the three of you? Sophia remained silent. The other two looked at her, clearly regarding her as their pillar of support. Sophia, what are you hesitating for? Dylan frowned. These humans are completely untrustworthy. Dylan, we're in a human city, and this person has a very high status among humans. I think we should change our mindset a bit. Sophia looked troubled. You're scared? Dylan exclaimed in shock. We are noble elves. How can we submit to the coercion of humans? This is not coercion, it is negotiation, Perseus reminded him seriously. Discuss? Who talks about discussing things in the middle of the night? Dylan said coldly. Get out of our way. If we weren't worried about the military police causing trouble, we wouldn't be so polite to you. It seems Mr. Dylan is quite determined? Perseus asked in surprise. Dylan scoffed. Understood, Perseus said, looking at Sophia again. The three of you should make a decision. We are willing to pledge our allegiance to the Empire, Sophia shouted. Upon hearing this, both Dylan and the other two elves were greatly shocked. Sophia, Dylan said blankly. Those who are willing to pledge allegiance, come over here. We welcome you very much. Sophia glanced at Dylan and then walked over. The other two quickly followed, seemingly trusting Sophia's judgment unconditionally. Even Dylan wavered, but out of pride, he stubbornly refused to back down. Dylan, come over here too. We can talk about it slowly when we get back to the sacred forest, Sophia encouraged with a smile, giving Dylan a way out. Dylan nodded and slowly walked this way. No, you can't go back, Perseus laughed. Katie. As soon as she finished speaking, Katie, who had been silent all along, moved toward Dylan like a dark shadow. As soon as Dylan drew his sword, his head fell to the ground. After a while, the head was placed on Robert's desk, looking at Reiner and the others with a mixture of fear and anger. Don't forget to show this to them when it's light. Perseus smiled, pointed to the items on his desk, and led Katie away from the city lord's mansion. Chapter 170 Moving. The next day, Perseus moved his family out of the house and prepared to move to the Earl's mansion. This house was originally bought as a temporary base. Now that it has been exposed, continuing to live here might attract unwanted attention, so it's better to simply leave. Although he hadn't had much contact with Count Murphy, he trusted him implicitly. Some people are like that. Whether they are trustworthy or not, one glance is enough. He plans to list the house for sale through a real estate agency. Houses in Eagle Peak City are never hard to sell, and he might even make a small profit. The others were fine, but Winnie and Carol seemed quite reluctant to part, sighing incessantly along the way. However, once they were lying on a luxurious velvet bed in the Earl's mansion, they all laughed. Perseus and Ivisa were still sharing a room and were vividly describing what had happened the night before. He came home too late last night, and, not wanting to disturb her rest, he went straight into Carol's room. There are some things that Ivisa absolutely needs to know. For example, his decisive and valiant demeanor. He already agreed. So why did you still kill him? Ivisa asked. There always needs to be a negative example, Perseus said. If everyone can ramble on and treat me so badly, yet still be able to keep going, how can things get done smoothly? The person you killed was in a relationship with another elven woman, wasn't he? Ivisa asked. Yes, I told you so, Perseus said as he lay down on her lap. This angle offers a unique perspective on Ivisa. However, if he were lying on Lovia's lap, he wouldn't be able to see her face at all. Aren't you worried she'll retaliate against you? Ivisa said. She's also a 6th-tier mage. It's impossible not to worry, but there's no need to be too anxious, Perseus said. The woman and the man have a very special relationship. I can only say that they are not an ordinary couple. How special is it? Perseus was conflicted. He didn't actually want Ivisa to know such exotic things, as it would complicate her pure mind too much, like scribbling on a blank sheet of paper. But then I thought this world is just that complicated and full of wonder. If you don't know this, you might be completely confused the next time you encounter the same thing. Perseus objectively stated what he knew, things that were